I always thought my dad was a good man. He used to tell me, Noah, in this life, all a man has is his name. Protect it. For years, I believed him. My name's Noah Green, and when this happened, I was 17, living in a small town in South Carolina, a quiet place where people still left their doors unlocked and gossip traveled faster than light. Everyone thought my dad, Tom Green, was one of the good ones. He worked as a mechanic at a local shop, helped fix neighbors' cars for free, and always showed up at church with a smile and firm handshake. To everyone else, he was the kind of man who'd give you the shirt off his back. But at home, things were different. Behind closed doors, that charm turned cold. My mom, Evelyn, used to be the glue that held us together. She was gentle, patient, the kind of woman who'd hum while washing dishes and make pancakes shaped like hearts on weekends. I remember her laugh, it filled the whole house. But one morning when I was 14, she was just gone. Dad said she left him, said she couldn't handle real life. I wanted to believe that, but it never made sense. She didn't take her purse, she didn't take her car, and her favorite silver necklace, the one she wore every single day, was still hanging by the bathroom mirror. When I asked questions, Dad would shut me down. It's greater than, she left, Noah. End of story. But it didn't feel like the end. It felt like something unfinished, something buried. After she disappeared, Dad changed. His temper got shorter. His drinks got stronger. He'd stare off for hours, talking to himself, sometimes muttering Mom's name under his breath. I learned to stay out of his way. Then, about 3 years later, I started noticing little things, strange things. One night I woke up to the sound of him arguing in the backyard. He was on the phone, his voice low and mean. I peeked through the blinds and saw him pacing by the tool shed, whispering harshly. I couldn't make out everything, but I heard one line clear as day. It's greater than, if you open your mouth, I'll bury you next to her. That sentence hit me like a punch. Next to her? I remember lying awake that night, my heart pounding. The next morning, at breakfast, he acted normal, like nothing happened. But I couldn't eat. The words kept looping in my head. After that, I started watching him closer. He was jumpy, paranoid. He checked the windows twice before bed, sometimes drive off in the middle of the night and come back hours later smelling like gasoline and dirt. I asked him once where he went. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "It's greater than, you ask too many damn questions." That's when I stopped asking. But deep down, I was scared. Not just of him, but of what I might find out if I looked too hard. Then one morning, something happened that changed everything. It was a Friday. I remember because I had an exam that day and woke up earlier than usual. I was brushing my teeth when I heard my bedroom door creak open. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Then I heard the sound of a zipper. I leaned out of the bathroom just enough to see him. My dad, kneeling beside my backpack. He unzipped it, took something out of his pocket, and slipped it inside before zipping it closed again. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. When he left the room, I waited a few seconds, then walked over and checked. Inside, hidden between my notebooks, was a small plastic bag filled with blue pills. My hand started shaking so bad I almost dropped it. It wasn't medicine. I knew exactly what they were. I stared at that bag for what felt like forever, trying to understand why. Why would my father put that in my bag? Then it hit me, his recent paranoia, the late night calls, the nervous pacing. He'd been talking about people who were after him. Maybe he'd gotten himself into something bad, and now he was trying to pin it on me. Maybe he wanted to ruin my life to save his own. I sat there on the edge of my bed, heart pounding, tears stinging my eyes. I wanted to scream, to confront him, to ask why he hated me enough to do something like this. But I didn't. Because for the first time in my life, I realized something terrifying. My dad wasn't just broken. He was dangerous. So instead of confronting him, I made a decision. I'd play along. I let him think I was clueless. And then I turned the tables. If he wanted to set me up, I'd make sure he took the fall instead. I didn't go to school that morning. I couldn't. I just sat on my bed, staring at my backpack, replaying what I saw over and over. My dad sneaking in, slipping drugs into my bag like it was nothing. By the time I went downstairs, he was in the kitchen making coffee, calm as ever. He looked up and said, "Is greater than you're up early, kiddo." I forced a smile. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." He grinned. That fake, fatherly grin people in town love so much. "Is greater than, don't stress too much about that exam. You'll be fine." He handed me my backpack, the same one he'd just turned into a trap. I felt bile rise in my throat. "Thanks," I muttered, slinging it over my shoulder. That word, thanks, felt like poison in my mouth. I walked to school, but I didn't go inside. I hid behind the old gym building for hours, just thinking. If I showed up and someone searched me, I'd be done. My dad would act shocked, call it a tragedy. The whole town would believe him. Nobody would believe me over him. I had to be smart, careful. By lunchtime, I made up my mind. I took the plastic bag from my backpack, wrapped it in an old napkin, and stuffed it deep inside my jacket pocket. Then I walked home early. Dad's truck wasn't there. I knew he worked late Fridays, sometimes doing private repairs for cash, whatever that meant. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge. I stood in the living room, staring at his car keys on the counter, and that's when the idea came to me. If he wanted to frame me, I flipped it back on him. He was supposed to pick me up after school that day, so I knew the cops would probably stop me, not him. But if those pills were found in his car instead of my bag, the story would change completely. So I went outside, opened the driver's side door of his old Chevy, and pushed the bag under the seat way in the back where only a cop searching for evidence would find it. My hands were shaking the whole time. Not from fear, but from something darker. For the first time, I wanted him to feel what I'd felt for years, helpless, small, trapped. When I was done, I closed the door quietly and went back inside, pretending nothing happened. A few hours later, I heard his truck rumble into the driveway. I sat at the table, pretending to do homework. He came in whistling, tossing his jacket over a chair. "It's greater than, how'd the exam go?" "Fine," I said flatly. He poured himself a beer, sat across from me, and leaned back like he didn't have a care in the world. "It's greater than, you're quiet tonight. Something on your mind?" I looked at him. The man who was supposed to protect me. The man who probably killed my mom. The man who tried to destroy me next. I wanted to tell him I knew, to watch his face crumble, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "It's greater than just tired." He nodded, satisfied. "Is greater than good. You'll sleep better tonight." He had no idea how right he was. That night, around 11, I heard his phone buzz on the counter. He grabbed it quickly, muttering, "Yeah, tomorrow morning's fine. He leaves around 7. He didn't say who he was talking to, but I didn't need to guess. I knew he was setting up something with the police, maybe Officer Clark, the guy he used to fish with. He probably told him his troubled son had fallen into bad habits. Maybe even said he found something in my bag. He was building his story brick by brick, and I was about to let him walk straight into it. The next morning, I acted normal. I ate breakfast, packed my lunch, even joked about how I hated math tests. He seemed almost proud, like everything was falling into place for him. When I left for school, he said, "It's greater than big day today, huh?" I smiled. "It's greater than, yeah, real big." I walked down the road until I was out of sight, then doubled back, hiding behind the old oak tree by our driveway. At 7:15, a police cruiser pulled up. My stomach twisted, but I stayed quiet. Officer Clark got out first, talking with my dad like old friends. They laughed, shaking hands. Then Clark said something and walked toward the house. A second officer opened the driver's side door of Dad's truck. Time froze. I could see everything: the officer bending down, his flashlight cutting through the morning light, his hand reaching under the seat, and then he put out the bag. My dad's expression changed instantly from relaxed to horrified. His eyes darted to the bag, then to Clark. "It's greater than, wait, that's not mine." Clark's voice turned sharp. Is greater than, Tom, you mind explaining why we just found a bag of illegal pills under your seat? Dad started stammering, his voice cracking. Someone planted that. I swear, I don't know how that got there. Clark looked disappointed. It's greater than, Tom, I've known you a long time. Don't make this harder than it has to be. They cuffed him right there in the driveway. The same driveway where I used to play catch with him as a kid. The same man who taught me how to throw a football was now being shoved into the backseat of a patrol car. And I didn't feel pity, not one bit, because for the first time in years, I finally felt safe. As the police drove off, the morning sun hit the house just right, casting a long shadow of the car against the grass. His shadow, and for the first time, I realized it wasn't mine anymore. I watched the police cruiser disappear down the street, its lights fading into the distance. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at the empty driveway, feeling nothing. No guilt, no joy, just silence. Inside the house, everything felt different. The air was lighter. The tension that had hung in every corner for years, it was gone. I sat down at the table where my dad had eaten breakfast just an hour before. His coffee mug was still half full, steam barely rising. I picked it up, looked at the chair where he'd sat, and whispered to myself, it's greater than you finally got what you deserved. For the next few days, the town was buzzing. Everyone was talking about Tom Green, the local mechanic turned drug dealer. The same man who once fixed people's cars for free was now in jail, charged with possession and intent to distribute. But beneath all that gossip, there was confusion. Nobody could believe it. Not Tom Green. He was the guy everyone trusted. The guy who smiled at church, waved at school events, volunteered at the shelter. No one could imagine what he was capable of behind closed doors. Except me. I stayed quiet through it all. When the police came by the house for questioning, I acted shocked, confused. I told them I had no idea what was going on, and they believed me. But I wasn't expecting what happened next. A week after his arrest, Officer Clark came back. Only this time, he wasn't there to ask questions. He had a warrant to search the property. He said they received a tip from one of my dad's old co-workers who thought he'd been hiding more than car parts in that old workshop out back. I followed them outside, my heart pounding for reasons I didn't even understand. They tore through the shed, the toolbox, the shelves. Nothing. Then one of the officers stomped his boot on the floor and it made a hollow sound. Clark frowned. It's greater than, get me a crowbar. He pried open one of the floorboards. Beneath it was a small wooden box, dusty, heavy, locked. When they cracked it open, everyone froze. Inside was a necklace. A silver one with a tiny heart-shaped pendant. I didn't have to see the engraving to know who it belonged to. Mom? My knees went weak. Clark noticed my face. It's greater than, you recognize this. I nodded, barely able to breathe. It's greater than, it's my mom's. She never took it off. That discovery changed everything. The police started digging literally. They searched the area behind our property, following records of where my dad used to work construction years ago. And then, 2 weeks later, they found her, buried shallow near an abandoned worksite. The official report said blunt force trauma. The same hammer my dad kept in his shed matched the injuries exactly. He didn't just lie about her leaving, he made sure she could never come back. When I got the call, I didn't cry. I just sat in silence, staring out the window, watching the rain hit the glass. For years, I'd wondered where she went, and now I knew. She never left me. He took her away. They added second-degree murder to his charges. The town that once worshipped him turned its back overnight. His friends stopped visiting, his boss cut ties, even the pastor who used to praise him in church refused to speak his name. And when the trial finally came, I was there for every second. He wouldn't look at me once. Not when the evidence was shown, not when the verdict was read. 40 years, no parole. I remember his face when they led him away, still trying to process how everything slipped from his control. I guess he never thought I'd be the one to beat him at his own game. After the trial, I moved out of that house. I couldn't stay there, not with those memories. I got a job, started therapy, and tried to rebuild what little of myself I had left. Sometimes, I still hear his voice in my head. Real men don't back down. He said that to me once when I was 10, after I lost a school fight. Back then, it sounded like fatherly advice. Now, it sounds like a confession from a man who never knew how to stop fighting, even when it meant destroying his own family. But he was right about one thing. Real men don't back down. Because when I found out the truth, I didn't. I stood my ground. I made him face what he'd done. And I buried his lies the same way he buried her deep, where they belonged. Some people say revenge doesn't fix anything. Maybe they're right. But for me, it didn't need to fix anything, it just needed to end it. Would you have done the same if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life revenge stories that'll leave you speechless.